Hey, how's it going everybody? It's your boy. And well, today's video is going to be about the word coloured. Now, why am I making this video about the word coloured? Well, you see, there's two reasons. First is the definition of the term. The word coloured has two definitions. One is the verb, they coloured, and then there's also the other definition, which refers to non-whites. In history, it depends on which non-white you refer to. In America, it seems to refer to black people mainly, although in other parts of the world it can mean black people, brown people. And also the reason why I brought this up is because recently on British TV on the politics show, Amber Rudd decided to use the word when referring to black MPs or even just any old non-white MPs. This created an uproar in far leftist circles, with David Lammy, Diane Abbott herself, attacking Amber Rudd for using such horrible language. So what did Amber Rudd actually do wrong? Well, basically all she's done is said a word that is now deemed to be racist. But as I know, and hopefully the people watching know, I know my subscribers certainly know, that a word is only racist depending on the context in which it is used. In the context that Amber Rudd used the word, she was simply referring to other people who just weren't white. That's literally it. And the reason why she probably said that is because, well, she's old. Not because she's a conservative. If she is, I think she's a conservative. She might be Labour, I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter. The point still stands is, she's an older woman. She's from another age where the term coloured was not considered racist and was often used just to refer to people such as myself, my dad, and anybody else who wasn't white. That's literally what it was used for. Obviously, there were contexts, there were times when it was used for racist reasons. But usually it was just this, a word that people use to refer to non-whites. And in that context, that's what she used it for. And the thing is, it's not just her who uses that word. Many people in this country use that word. Often they are from an older persuasion, as Amber Rudd is, or they could even be from a more working class origin, where words tend to not really affect people as much. They seem to be in use a bit more than maybe from other classes of people, where terms like coloured would be discarded very quickly because bourgeois norms and all that. In fact, I myself have been called coloured by white people and even non-white people. But my friends who aren't white have used that term because they're not from middle class backgrounds, or if they are, it's just the word they've always used to refer to themselves or to other people, and nobody ever seems to have a problem with it because that's just the community they're from. Again, it's the context that matters, but of course the far left context doesn't matter. We've seen this with Dankula, we've seen this with a myriad of other people. It doesn't matter what the context is, you're still racist. So apparently even me and other people who have used that word, I've used it a fair few times recently myself, we're now racist, even if we don't use it in a racist context. But what is interesting is that it's the reaction of David Lammy and Diane Abbott, which I responded to on Twitter, that was perhaps the most hypocritical, because you see, they come from the same group of people that use the term person of colour, which, to use the George Carlin use of the phrase euphemism, is a euphemism for coloured. In his exploration of language, I know he's kind of unpopular now because he was an idiot when it came to gender. He was bang on when it came to language, actually. He was pretty good with this. Like, his example is this. When we talk about the mental illness that people get during wartime, or even just traumatic experiences, but specifically wartime, the original phrase, as everybody knows, was shell shock, in reference to the shells and the shock that people got as a result of that. That later became battle fatigue, and then later became post-traumatic stress disorder. I think there may have been one other thing in the middle, but it doesn't really matter. The point is, it became more of a euphemism. People began to refer to this mental illness, this shell shock, more euphemistically. Why? Could be a variety of reasons. Maybe it's just jargon and that's how it naturally develops over time, or maybe people really are being euphemistic and trying to make it sound better than it actually is. Maybe they're trying not to offend people, or maybe it just doesn't sound right to normies. But I don't know. But that's what we do. That's what people have done when it comes to language. And he doesn't like that. He prefers things to be straight and to the point. And I agree. However, in this particular case, because he made it the case that the more strung out and bigger the word is, the more euphemistic it is. Although that is true, this is the opposite. Person of colour, people of colour, coloured. The syllables, they're actually more in the euphemism than they are in the original term. But then again, technically speaking, person of colour is as old as coloured is. In fact, the British Army, in reference to coloured people, to use the term, would not allow in World War One, and perhaps even before that, until recently that is. I'm not sure how long ago they changed the law, but it doesn't matter. The point still stands is this. A man called Walter Tull, who was a mixed race man actually, not a black man, as many identitarians would have you believe. He was a man who fought in the First World War. He was a British Army officer. He was not part of the Commonwealth forces or the colonial forces. He was strictly a British Army soldier. He was promoted to the post of lieutenant shortly before he died at the Somme. That's why he's mostly famous, because he also broke ground, because he was the first person of colour to actually be promoted to that post. And actually he wasn't really meant to, because there was a rule that men of colour were not allowed to become officers. Yes, of colour, person, woman of colour, has been used, as far as I know, for 100 years. And that was actually a racist context in which it was used. Therefore, all these people, like Diane Abbott and David Lammy and their other far leftist friends who use this term, are actually using a racist term, because it's exactly the same thing as coloured. They're just being euphemistic about it. But in their opinion, for some reason it's different. And another thing is, there's a new term that has been developed called a BAME or BAM. I don't even know how you pronounce it. I think it's unpronounceable. Or BAME. It stands for black and. For some reason, and is now part of the acronym. And other words like that aren't part of acronyms. God, we need to learn something from the Americans for one. Black and minority ethnic. There's already problems with this phrase anyway. What is a minority ethnic? The phrase, the acronym, implies that it refers to non-white people. Well, a minority ethnic could be literally anybody. It could be a Polish person, an Irish person even. Southern Irish, really. A French person. Take your pick. It could be literally anybody. It doesn't have to be a non-white person to be a minority ethnic. Am I a minority ethnic if I go to, I don't know, France or Saudi Arabia or whatever? Or am I not? Am I a minority ethnic in Trinidad, which is where my ancestors come from? It's a stupid, vague term that doesn't mean anything. And then they have black, which could mean literally any ethnic group itself. Which ones are we referring to? I don't know. Do Latinos include in that? Because there are black Latinos, and some of them don't consider themselves African or Caribbean or anything like that. Just Latino. It's a stupid term, and I never asked to be referred to in that way. I don't think anybody who is an ethnic minority in this country who isn't white asked to be referred this way. Nobody called us that 10 years ago, but hell, nobody called us that even 5 years ago. This is a new development. So when David Lammy uses that and talks in terms like we, like, who is we? I have nothing in common with him, and he has nothing in common with a Pakistani person or an Indian person or anything like that, because we're all individuals. We all have our different views and opinions. There is no we. So therefore, that can be used in the racist context because it's collectivising people and generalising. But apparently it's okay when he does it. When somebody else uses a term because they're old in a context that isn't racist, it's racist. Browbeat them, attack them, when it's ridiculous. Context always matters. In fact, I would argue that those terms could be considered worse than the term that Amber Rudd used, because they're used always in a collectivist context, always used to group people together and ignore their individuality, and it's simply used to make people out to be a statistic. Because I'm not a statistic, I'm not something that can be used to further somebody's agenda. And it's funny that it's David Lammy and Diane Abbott who are attacking Amber Rudd, because last I checked, and I'm paraphrasing it quite strongly, Diane Abbott said some very strong things about white people, saying that there's something innate about them that makes them conquer other people. That's very essentialist of you. And I can't believe it's you who's calling out somebody else for racism. And David Lammy, we already know that guy likes to race bait. He's basically our Al Sharpton. And I don't like the fact that these two people in particular, they're not the only ones. They probably didn't even start it. I'm not sure. But they're importing that American-style racial politics to this country, and I don't like it. It has no place here. It doesn't even have any place in America. We should all be viewed as individuals and judged as individuals, not as groups. But anyway, that's all I have to say about the matter. So until next time, it's been your boy, and I'll see you later.